It's when you share something that really matters, not to perform, but because staying silent would mean betraying yourself. Even when it would be easier to keep it light, change the subject, or pretend like everything's fine. Now, fast forward to your feed. Someone's on Instagram live. Eyes red, voice trembling. I never planned to be in psychoeducation. I kind of fell into it. Mindfulness, coaching. But behind the calm voice, I was walking on eggshells. There was a rule book. Yeah, no thanks. I ask questions. I live in the gray zones. This is space in between. No fluff, no filters. Welcome. You're in the right place. You're listening to Space in Between, a podcast for the beautifully messy, the things we second guess, and the parts of ourselves we usually try to keep hidden. I'm Vesna, and I'm not here to fix you or to sell you a 5-step path to emotional freedom. In the last episode, we talked about therapy language and how it can go from helpful to kind of fake. Like when I'm triggered, ends the conversation, and setting boundaries really means pushing people away. This time, we're talking about vulnerability and how sometimes it starts looking more like a performance than something real. So, what is vulnerability really? Vulnerability means being emotionally honest when it feels risky. It's opening up without knowing how the other person will respond. It's saying, I might get hurt. I might be misunderstood, but I'm showing up anyway. It's taking the chance to be real with no script, no safety net, no guarantee it will land well. Like Brené Brown puts it, vulnerability is about uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. In simple terms, it's scary and it's honest. That's what makes it powerful and also pretty rare. It's when you share something that really matters, not to perform, but because staying silent would mean betraying yourself. Even when it would be easier to keep it light, change the subject, or pretend like everything's fine. Now, fast forward to your feed. Someone's on Instagram live. Eyes red, voice trembling. The caption says, I don't know if I should be posting this, but I just need to be real for a minute. And yeah, it kind of feels emotional. It looks vulnerable, but something doesn't quite sit right. You pause and quietly wonder, are they really falling apart? Or just letting us watch? Because lately, vulnerability isn't just personal, it's performative. Crying on camera, telling your deepest story, sharing pain in a way that's lit just right, captioned just right, timed just right. And maybe they mean it, but maybe they also know what kind of attention it gets. Because in a world that rewards visibility, sometimes it's hard to tell, is this about connection or about control? And let me be clear, really, really clear. There are people out there who are truly vulnerable, who talk about illness, abuse, depression, grief, not for clicks, but to break silence, who share their truths even though it costs them something. I admire them. I learn from them. They remind me of what honesty looks like when it's not curated. But lately, it's gotten blurry. And I'll be the first to say it. I've done it too. I've shared something personal and told myself, look at me being so vulnerable. And maybe part of me was. But looking back, the real vulnerability would be saying that same thing face to face to the person it was actually about. To admit I was hurt or scared or wrong. Not to a crowd of people, but in a real conversation. Because posting to strangers, that's easy. You control the timing, the tone, the distance. But showing up in the mess without a filter, without knowing how it will land, that's the hard part. That's the part that costs something. What I thought was vulnerability was actually a way to protect myself, to look open without actually opening up. That's not vulnerability. That's strategy. Let's name it performative vulnerability. It looks like connection, but it's not. It's carefully selected pain, the kind we've already cleaned up, made sense of, wrapped in a nice caption. It's not, I'm in it. It's, I've already survived it, and now I know how to make it look good. It's not about being seen. It's about being perceived a certain way. It's vulnerability that keeps us in control. And the moment we're trying to control how we're seen, we're not actually being vulnerable. We're performing safety, not risking connection. And we don't do this because we're fake. We do it because we're human. So let's zoom out for a moment and ask, why do we perform vulnerability at all? Psychologically, because we are wired to belong. We want to be seen, but we want to feel safe doing it. And real vulnerability, it threatens that safety. So we find clever ways to look open while keeping our guard up. We share, but only what we've already processed, only what we can manage. It's self-protection dressed up as authenticity. Culturally, because the line between public and private barely exists anymore. We don't just live, we post. We don't just feel, we turn it into content. Heartbreak becomes a story slide. Healing becomes a carousel post. Confusion gets turned into a wise-sounding quote graphic, even if we're still knee-deep in the mess we're pretending to understand. We've been taught to brand our feelings, to make our pain digestible, to turn our breakdowns into something people can engage with. So even in our most human moments, we're still editing. Sociologically, because there's an entire system that rewards personal storytelling, but only the kind that sells. Be real, they say, but only if your truth is marketable. Only if there's a lesson at the end. Only if it makes you more likable, more relatable, or if it brings you more followers. So we cry with filters. We expose ourselves, but only the parts that make people clap. And the hardest part? It works. But here's the cost. It makes actual vulnerability harder to recognize, harder to trust, harder to even feel. Because when everything is labeled vulnerable, nothing really feels true anymore. Even honesty starts to feel rehearsed. And here's the uncomfortable truth: not everything needs to be shared. Not everything should be shared. Some things deserve to be sacred, to be spoken in quiet rooms, to be held by one trusted person, not 10,000 strangers and an algorithm. Because real vulnerability isn't always beautiful, isn't always shareable, doesn't always end in a lesson, and almost never goes viral. So if you're wondering how to spot the difference in yourself, try asking, am I sharing to connect or to control the narrative? Would it be harder but more honest to say this to someone directly? What am I protecting by posting this instead of having a conversation? Who am I trying to be? We are not here to cancel vulnerability. We are here to rescue it from the performance, from the filters, from the idea that healing only counts if someone else is watching. You don't owe your story to anyone. Your process is yours. Your mess is sacred. Your healing does not need an audience to be real. And that's the space in between, the messy, honest place where we don't have to perform being okay and we don't have to package our pain. So here's my question for this week. What's one thing you've been tempted to share online that might actually be more powerful, more healing, if you shared it quietly, with yourself, with one person, with no camera on? Because sometimes the most radical thing you can do is not post. Sometimes real vulnerability means doing the scary thing in real life, not just sharing it online. And next time, we're talking about the pressure to always be the best version of yourself. To get out of your comfort zone, level up, heal faster, do more inner work. When personal growth stops feeling personal and starts feeling like a competition. So if you ever felt like your well-being turned into a full-time project, another thing to manage, measure, and perfect, you're not alone. We're going in there. See you next time in the space between I'm just being vulnerable and I rehearsed this 3 times before posting. Stay uncomfortable.